Chapter 147 to 149. Host, the system's suggestion is that there is no need for the host to perform bloodline fusion, because the fusion of bloodlines carries certain risks. If it fails, the host's essence might become damaged. The system warned again. "Start the fusion!" Goten commanded. Despite the system's caution, Goten knew that to compete with behemoths like the Grand Priest, his current strength was insufficient. Only by fusing the 3 legendary Saiyan bloodlines could he significantly enhance his power quickly. This was his best chance to gain the strength needed to face such formidable opponents. "Okay, host." The system complied. Despite the risks, it had to follow Goten's instructions. "Host, please prepare. The bloodline fusion will start in a minute. During the process, there may be significant pain. Endure it." The system's voice echoed in his mind. Goten began counting down the seconds silently. He recalled the excruciating pain from his last bloodline fusion, which felt like every bone in his body was being shattered and reformed. This time, fusing 3 bloodlines, the pain would undoubtedly be even more intense. As the countdown ended, a heart-piercing pain surged through every inch of his body. Ugh! The agony of bone reconstruction made Goten grit his teeth. However, he could bear this physical pain. Compared to being trapped in the void for 75 years, this was relatively mild. Physical pain could never compare to mental trauma. Time ticked by slowly. Every inch of his bones and skin seemed to be undergoing transformation. The pain persisted for 10 minutes. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully fusing the bloodlines. The system's notification rang in his mind, and the pain gradually subsided. Tien, the power of plot armor prevails. Grime covered his body, and sweat had soaked most of the ground. Goten felt the earth-shaking changes within him. Clenching his fist slightly, he sensed the power surging like a raging ocean. This newfound power was significantly stronger than before. Not only had his normal power increased, but his transformation power had also risen exponentially. "It feels so good. This strength is incredible," Goten exclaimed, feeling the immense power coursing through him. This was an unprecedented sensation. With this power, he believed he was closer to the level of the Grand Priest, especially in his Limit Break Super Saiyan I-4 form. He wanted to test his strength. Closing his eyes briefly, he reopened them, releasing a terrifying grass-green ki aura. His pupils turned golden, and his hair remained grass-green. Though his appearance had not changed much, the force he exuded was immense, far surpassing his previous level. Rumble. The hyperbolic time chamber's dimensional space collapsed under the pressure of his power, even though Goten was restraining his aura. Had he not, the entire 7th universe might have been destroyed. Meanwhile, on Earth, Goku and Vegeta felt Goten's powerful ki as they trained in Bulma's custom-made villa. They immediately stopped, horror etched on their faces. "What? This powerful force is Goten's ki. How is it possible? How could Goten's aura reach this level? This is too terrifying," Goku exclaimed in shock. "Even here I can feel the oppressive feeling." Although they knew Goten's strength was immense before, this new power was truly shocking. Even Beerus was not a match for Goten, but the power now being released was beyond their imagination. It felt like a bottomless abyss, impossible to gauge. Even from a great distance, and despite Goten reining it in, they still felt the threat of death from his aura. Can a mortal really reach such a level? Goku wondered aloud, incredulous. Unbelievable, Vegeta exclaimed. Damn it, he's just a half-breed. Why is he so much stronger than us? Vegeta was beginning to doubt everything. Goten's current strength was beyond anything they could conceive, filling him with both shock and jealousy. Kakarot, it seems that in another timeline, you really gave birth to a monster. How did he become so powerful? Vegeta complained. He couldn't understand why the Goten in their timeline had shown only mediocre talent after breaking through Super Saiyan as a kid, despite constant training, while the Goten from another timeline had achieved unimaginable strength. "How could I know?" Goku replied helplessly. He too was at a loss to explain what had made the Goten from another timeline so powerful. It was no exaggeration to say that this Goten might already be stronger than an angel, something they had never dared to imagine before. Meanwhile, in the realm of the god of destruction of the seventh universe, Beerus was enjoying Earth's delicacies when he was suddenly taken aback. The delicacies fell from his hands as he looked in a certain direction in horror. "This power, Whis, can you feel it? This extremely powerful aura?" Beerus asked, his face a mask of shock. "Yes, Lord Beerus. The aura just now belonged to Goten. It's unbelievable. In a short period, his strength seems to have made a huge breakthrough. There is no doubt that this force has become so powerful that even we angels are afraid of it," Whis replied, his expression equally solemn. Previously, Goten had shown exceptional fighting talent and strength, surpassing even the god of destruction. But at that time, he hadn't displayed his full strength, and Whis never thought Goten could surpass an angel. Now his entire perception was shattered. Goten's power seemed not only to surpass the level of an angel, but far exceed it. "This Goten is a monster!" Beerus exclaimed. "If Lord Zeno and the Grand Priest find out, it will be a disaster." The increase in mortal power in the universe should be a good thing for the gods. However, Goten was a mortal from another timeline, with more powerful energy than both the god of destruction and the angels. If the Grand Priest and Zeno discovered this powerful mortal, the situation could become troublesome. If they realized Goten was from another timeline and that the gods of destruction had done nothing, they might face severe punishment. "It is possible, Lord Beerus. If it were ordinary power, it would be impossible to reach Lord Zeno's palace. But now Goten's power includes mortal, god, and angel energy, specifically that of Angel Murno. If the Grand Priest senses it, he will definitely investigate," Whis said, very seriously. Murno had been gone for hundreds of millions of years, and now his angel aura had suddenly reappeared. If the Grand Priest sensed this, he would surely come to investigate. If the Grand Priest was dispatched, the situation would become dire. Beerus's expression grew even grimmer upon hearing this. But there was nothing he could do. His strength couldn't match Goten's, nor could he punish him. Driving Goten away was almost impossible for him and even for Whis. Just after Beerus sensed the immense force, the gods of destruction and angels from other universes began to detect it as well. The aura from Goten had not only spread throughout the seventh universe, but had reached all the surrounding universes. All the angels and gods of destruction were astonished. In their experience, aside from Zeno and the Grand Priest, there didn't seem to be any other being with such overwhelming power. What was even more surprising was that this aura was mixed with mortal Kai, indicating it was not purely divine. This revelation shocked them even further. At the same time, the Grand Priest in Zeno's palace also felt this incredible force, especially recognizing the familiar angel power. "This is Murno's angel power?" the Grand Priest wondered aloud. "What's happening? Murno's aura has appeared suddenly, but Murno himself is not here. The aura belongs to him, but he is not present." He noted the presence of mortal power, divine power, and destructive power. This mixture was unprecedented, and it was something he had never encountered before. Even after observing the 12 universes, no being possessed such a powerful and unique combination. The Grand Priest's normally calm demeanor was replaced by an expression of shock. Though he usually maintained a serene and unshakable facade, the power he had just sensed was so immense that it rivaled even his own. The Grand Priest was puzzled. The force combined mortal, angel, and god of destruction auras simultaneously, something he had never seen before. There was no such being in the 12 universes. Meanwhile, the two guards beside Zeno also felt the powerful force, their brows raised slightly in surprise. It had been a long time since they had sensed such a significant power, far surpassing that of the usual gods of destruction. Zeno, however, seemed unaware of the situation, continuing to play with his favorite marbles, which were actually planets from the universe. After playing for over 10 minutes, he appeared a bit bored and turned to look at the Grand Priest. Noticing the Grand Priest's frown, Zeno's childish voice asked curiously, "Grand Priest, you seem troubled. Did something happen in the universe?" The Grand Priest, who was always smiling, had not shown such a serious expression in many years. He responded respectfully and sincerely, "Yes, Lord Zeno. I just felt an extremely powerful aura, which seems to have originated from the seventh universe. This aura surpasses all gods of destruction and angels, reaching an unprecedented level. We have never encountered such a powerful being in the 12 universes, and it has piqued my curiosity." The Grand Priest was eager to find out who could wield such immense power. This force even seemed to surpass that of the dragon god Zalama. If the owner of this aura was not benevolent, it could pose a threat to the 12 universes. "Huh? Is there someone this remarkable?" Zeno asked in surprise. By seeing his surprise, one wouldn't know if this guy really didn't perceive this powerful aura before, or he was just pretending all the time. From his expression, it seemed that he was genuinely interested. "Lord Zeno, what the Grand Priest said is absolutely correct," one of Zeno's guards confirmed. "We also felt the powerful aura. It not only fused the power of a god of destruction, but also the power of an angel. It's a formidable adversary." The guards were also deeply shocked by the aura, having never encountered such overwhelming power in their long history. If this being were an opponent, even they would find it extremely challenging. "Hey! Is there really something this extraordinary happening?" Zeno exclaimed. "You three are taking it so seriously. Now I'm very interested in this person you mentioned. Grand Priest, why don't you bring him here? I'd like to see who possesses such incredible power. He might be quite an interesting fellow." Having heard the same from both the Grand Priest and his guards, Zeno's interest was piqued. Such a powerful fighter deserved a closer look. "Okay, Lord Zeno. That's what I thought just now. There is such a powerful character in the universe, so I naturally want to meet him." The Grand Priest nodded quickly and smiled. As Zeno's attendant, he had the obligation to inspect this universe thoroughly. If the owner of the aura that appeared just now was a vicious person, he was also obliged to completely erase it. "Then, Lord Zeno, I'm going!" After the Grand Priest spoke respectfully to Zeno, he walked out of Zeno's palace. After leaving Zeno's palace, a purple void rift suddenly appeared in front of the Grand Priest. He stepped into it and finally disappeared completely. When he appeared again, he was already in the god of destruction realm of the seventh universe. The reason he didn't go directly to that guy was because he wanted to ask the seventh universe god of destruction Beerus and Angel Whis what had happened. At the moment the Grand Priest appeared, Beerus was so scared he fell to the ground. Whis also knelt down respectfully in front of him. It seemed that, in his eyes, the Grand Priest was more threatening than Zeno. As an angel himself, he had more respect for the Grand Priest than Zeno. "We greet the Grand Priest. I don't know why you are here. What's your order?" Beerus asked in a trembling tone, his face full of horror. However, he was also very clear in his heart that the Grand Priest came because of what happened with Goten just now. The Grand Priest had not left the Temple of Zeno for tens of millions of years. The last time he appeared in the seventh universe was tens of millions of years ago. So, his sudden appearance now, especially after Goten burst out with a powerful aura, obviously had something to do with Goten. Both Whis and Beerus were very clear about this. God of destruction of the seventh universe, an extremely powerful force suddenly appeared in your universe just now. Do you know what's going on? the Grand Priest asked. After the Grand Priest's voice fell, Beerus shrank his neck in shock. He obviously didn't know what to do at this point. If he told the Grand Priest the truth, he would definitely be punished. After all, for a god of destruction to actually tolerate people traveling through timelines at will, this clearly violated the rules of the gods. If he lied, the outcome might be even more serious. He might be erased directly. So at this moment, he was in a dilemma. He never expected that Goten would release such a powerful force, alarming both Zeno and the Grand Priest. Whis, seeing Beerus's dilemma, hurriedly said, "Lord Grand Priest, the one who released the breath just now was a scion from the seventh universe. His strength is indeed very strong. In the battle with Lord Beerus a month ago, he defeated Lord Beerus with ease. According to my guess, his strength has far surpassed those of us angels. Such a powerful existence is beyond our control." Whis didn't tell the Grand Priest the complete truth. If he did, Beerus would definitely be punished. Having been with Beerus for hundreds of millions of years, the two had a good relationship. He wouldn't put Beerus in danger unless absolutely necessary. "Judging from the aura just now, you are indeed no match for him. Even if I want to defeat him, it will not be so easy," the Grand Priest said seriously, nodding. Such a powerful aura couldn't be compared to a mere god of destruction. He hoped that guy didn't become a threat to the universe. Otherwise, he would erase him without hesitation. "What? Even with your strength, you can't easily defeat that guy?" After hearing the Grand Priest's words, Whis and Beerus showed surprised expressions. Although they knew Goten was incredibly strong, even Whis, who was an angel, couldn't perceive how powerful Goten was. But hearing the Grand Priest say this made their hearts tumble, with waves of shock crashing through them. For all the angels, the Grand Priest was the most powerful existence above the universe. Not even he could easily beat Goten. How could a mere mortal reach such a level? Beerus was already frightened silly. If even the Grand Priest said that, it seemed that Goten was indeed very remarkable. "Okay, since this is the case, you two will come with me. Lord Zeno and I both have a very strong interest in that scion," the Grand Priest said calmly. He was interested in that scion, not only because his strength was extraordinary. In the entire universe, the number of people who could beat him could be counted on one hand. More importantly, in the scion's aura just now, he felt Murnau's angel power. This was what shocked him the most. Murnau had done some foolish things in the past, which caused the 13th universe to be completely destroyed by Zeno. As an unqualified angel, Murnau was completely sealed by the Grand Priest himself. The seal had not been lifted until now, so he didn't understand why that mortal had Murnau's angel power. Okay, Lord Grand Priest." Beerus and Whis also nodded respectfully. They hoped nothing would go wrong. Otherwise, the seventh universe might face a huge crisis. The trio then left the God of Destruction realm and headed to Earth. On Earth, at the lookout, Goten had withdrawn his aura and returned to normal. After walking out of the hyperbolic time chamber, the lookout was already in a mess, with debris from the explosion everywhere. Dende and Mr. Popo looked at the destroyed hyperbolic time chamber in bewilderment. However, this was not the first time the hyperbolic time chamber had been destroyed. Guys like Goku and Vegeta had broken the hyperbolic time chamber a couple of times, but it was always repaired by Mr. Popo. "I'm so sorry, Dende. I didn't control my strength just now, so I destroyed the hyperbolic time chamber," Goten said somewhat awkwardly. "It's okay, Goten. The hyperbolic time chamber has been destroyed several times, and it was always restored by Mr. Popo. This time, Mr. Popo can also fix it quickly, so you don't have to worry about it," Dende said with a smile. Just now, he had felt Goten's god aura. This made him realize that Goten was definitely someone not to be provoked, and since the other party's tone was polite now, he naturally didn't want to provoke him either. "Kami-sama, the hyperbolic time chamber may not be repairable this time. Before, Goku and Vegeta just blasted a hole in the dimensional space of the hyperbolic time chamber. But this time, the hyperbolic time chamber has been completely blown up, which means it is completely gone. So even if it's me, I can't do it," Mr. Popo said with a serious face and a somewhat conservative tone. The degree of destruction this time was different from the previous ones. This time, the hyperbolic time chamber had completely disappeared. Then forget it," Dende said with an awkward smile. The hyperbolic time chamber was not that important to the two of them. It was Goku and Vegeta who might suffer from this matter in the future, as the hyperbolic time chamber probably wouldn't be available from today onwards. I'm really sorry. I didn't expect this kind of thing to happen," Goten continued apologetically. "It's okay. No problem." Dende shook his head quickly. As they were talking, a purple void rift suddenly appeared in the sky above the lookout. In the next second, 3 extremely familiar figures emerged from the rift. The one standing in the middle was the Grand Priest, with Beerus and Whis on either side. The moment he saw the Grand Priest, the smile on Goten's face froze and then disappeared little by little. His face became gloomy, and he clenched his fist tightly, staring at the Grand Priest. "That's Lord Beerus!" Dende said in horror after seeing Beerus. Although the relationship between the fighters on Earth and Beerus was not bad, as a lower-ranked god, the fear of the god of destruction came from his heart. This fear would not disappear easily. "You guys hurry up and greet the Grand Priest," Beerus said hurriedly to everyone. He was afraid that neglecting the Grand Priest would implicate him. After seeing Beerus's expression, Dende and Mr. Popo hurriedly greeted them. "Lord Grand Priest," they said respectfully. Dende, who was from Namek, had a very polite personality. Goten, however, was unfazed. If it hadn't happened before, he would have maintained his respect upon seeing the Grand Priest. But since that incident, he had no affection for the Grand Priest. Bowing his head to him again was impossible. With his current ability, even if he couldn't beat the Grand Priest, he could ensure the Grand Priest couldn't pose too much of a threat to him. "Goten, what are you doing? Hurry up and greet the Grand Priest." Seeing that Goten was unmoved, Beerus was immediately frightened and began to sweat profusely. Goten's strength was immense, and Beerus was no match for him. If Goten refused to greet the Grand Priest, as the god of destruction, there was nothing Beerus could do. "I have admired your name for a long time, Grand Priest." After hearing what Beerus said, Goten didn't want to make things too difficult for him. With a sneer at the corner of his mouth, he greeted the Grand Priest. Previously, he had addressed him with the Lord title, but now he felt the Grand Priest was not worthy of it. "It's really interesting." The Grand Priest smiled and didn't seem to mind Goten's attitude. "Goten, was that powerful aura just released by you?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. The moment he saw Goten, he knew the powerful aura was from this mortal. Although he was extremely surprised, the truth was clear. "That's right. The aura just now was indeed released by me. However, even a big shot like you, Grand Priest, has been attracted here. It seems I didn't rein in my strength properly," Goten said flatly. He was telling the truth. He hadn't expected to attract the Grand Priest, but he wasn't afraid. Even if it came to a direct confrontation, he felt that the Grand Priest couldn't defeat him quickly. Moreover, with the dimensional portal and time ring, very few people could hurt him. "Hey, it seems you are a little dissatisfied with me. Why? Have I done something that made you uncomfortable?" The Grand Priest felt that Goten's tone was a bit off, but in his memory, he had never seen such a mortal. He hadn't left Zeno's palace in tens of millions of years. No matter how long a mortal's lifespan was, it was impossible for one to live that long. As a Grand Priest, he didn't think he would remember this incorrectly. After hearing the Grand Priest's words, Goten's expression didn't change much, but Beerus was so frightened he nearly fell down. Frightened, he quickly replied, "No, no, no. There is absolutely no such thing. Goten has never met you, so how could he be dissatisfied with you? This is absolutely impossible. Please, Grand Priest, don't think so. Goten just hasn't seen the big world, so he can't imagine how powerful you are." While speaking, Beerus quickly winked at Goten, feeling as if he was about to wet himself in fright. He felt that his life was hanging by a thread. "Ah, yes, Beerus is absolutely right," Goten said, seeing Beerus's terrified expression. Although he particularly hated the Grand Priest, he couldn't leave Beerus hanging. "So that's the case. It looks like I was really overthinking." The Grand Priest nodded. He seemed to understand. After all, a mortal with strength beyond a god of destruction and an angel had almost reached his own level. It was understandable to be proud and arrogant. The mortal in front of him did have that kind of capital. "Goten, please come with me. Lord Zeno wants to see you," the Grand Priest said seriously. "Ah, Lord Zeno, as expected. He knows. This is so bad." Beerus didn't know how to describe his mood at the moment. Today was truly a stimulating day. After hesitating for a moment, Goten nodded. "Okay, then I'll go with you." He had nothing to fear now. With the time ring, he could freely travel through any timeline. He now had 5 time rings, which meant he had 5 lives, so even if he went to meet Zeno, it shouldn't be a big problem. The Zeno of this timeline was not from his own timeline. It was possible that he was simply curious about Goten's power. "Okay, let's go then. Whis, you two go back by yourselves," the Grand Priest ordered. Then Goten flashed and appeared in front of the Grand Priest. Soon, the two disappeared together with the purple void rift. Beerus felt even more miserable now. Zeno was more difficult to deal with than the Grand Priest. Moreover, his temperament was changeable, and his personality was as unpredictable as a child's. If Goten maintained his defiant personality, it was very likely to cause big trouble. "Lord Beerus, don't worry too much. Although Goten's character is indeed arrogant, I don't think he is the kind of person who has no limits. After seeing Lord Zeno, he won't say arrogant things," Whis comforted Beerus, seeing his miserable face. But his consolation didn't have much effect on Beerus. He had seen Goten's performance just now. How could someone who didn't care about the Grand Priest pay attention to Zeno? It was clear that Goten had no idea of the horrors of Zeno and the Grand Priest. Just pray that's the case. Otherwise, our entire 7th universe might be wiped out by Lord Zeno. Although Beerus was very distressed, there was nothing he could do. This matter was beyond his ability to intervene. If Goten was smart enough, he wouldn't say something stupid. But if he was foolish, then he and the entire 7th universe might pay a heavy price. Meanwhile, under the guidance of the Grand Priest, Goten once again arrived at the familiar Zeno's palace. "Goten, this is Lord Zeno's palace. However, I must remind you that Lord Zeno's temperament is a bit like a child's, making it hard to understand. No matter what attitude you used with me, when meeting Lord Zeno, it's best to remain polite and respectful. Otherwise, no matter how strong you are, you may fall here," the Grand Priest kindly reminded. He had followed Zeno for hundreds of millions of years, yet he still couldn't figure out Zeno's character. "Well, I see." Goten nodded. He was quite familiar with Zeno's unpredictable character. Honestly, with his current strength, he didn't fear the Grand Priest. Even if he wasn't the Grand Priest's opponent yet, killing him wouldn't be simple. But with Zeno, it was completely different. Zeno had mastered the supreme law power in the entire multiverse universe. One thought could erase everything he didn't like. Although Goten's strength was immense, he didn't think he could overcome Zeno. He didn't think his strength could resist Zeno's erasure, so it was better to be low-key. "Then let's go." After the Grand Priest spoke, he led the way. Goten followed. A few minutes later, they arrived at the huge Zeno's temple. In the entire temple, there were only Zeno and his 2 guards. It seemed a bit lonely. "Lord Zeno, I have brought the person you were looking for," the Grand Priest said respectfully. "Great! Grand Priest, you were so quick!" Zeno looked excited. Then, looking at Goten, he asked in a cute voice, "So, what's your name?" "My name is Goten," Goten replied. neither humble nor overbearing. The previous incident had made him deeply resent Zeno and the Grand Priest, so when he saw them again, he wasn't overly polite. Although the Grand Priest and Zeno in this timeline weren't the same as those in his own timeline, their personalities shouldn't be much different. Goten didn't like them. Goten? Just now, the Grand Priest said he felt a very powerful force. Was it you who released it? In that case, your strength should be very strong, Zeno said to Goten, his tone unchanged, with a lot of interest in his eyes. Such an interesting and powerful mortal hadn't been seen in a long time. Yes, Goten nodded again. Then he glanced at Zeno's two guards. Both of them stared fiercely at Goten with wide-open eyes, as if they wanted to devour him directly. In hundreds of millions of years, no god dared to answer questions in such a lazy tone in front of Zeno, let alone a mere mortal. If Zeno showed any displeasure, they would completely destroy Goten in an instant. But Goten was lucky. Zeno wasn't angry. Seeing the expression of the two guards as if they were about to eat him, Goten showed disdain. Although Zeno's two guards were powerful, he wasn't afraid of them. If there was a fight, Goten was sure he could kill them both. Grand Priest, this Goten is so powerful. What do you think should be done? Zeno asked, looking at the Grand Priest. With such strength, Goten didn't even have the identity of a god. This was indeed a bit inappropriate. Lord Zeno, Goten's strength has surpassed the gods of destruction in all universes. In my opinion, let's replace a certain god of destruction and let him become the new god of destruction of that universe. The Grand Priest smiled and suggested. Given the power Goten had displayed, he was truly qualified to be a god of destruction. It seems very good. However, with such a powerful force, would it be fair for him to only become a single universe's god of destruction? I think Goten is suited for a higher position, Zeno said after a moment of thought. The current gods of destruction were too weak compared to Goten. It seemed inappropriate for Goten to be one of them. Then what do you think it should be? The Grand Priest asked. Grand Priest, hasn't the position of Grand God of Destruction always been vacant? I think with Goten's strength, he can fill that role perfectly, Zeno suggested. He felt this idea was familiar, as if he had mentioned it before, but he couldn't recall where. Lord Zeno's words are indeed very appropriate. Originally, this position was to be chosen from among the 12 gods of destruction, but none of them seemed to want to make progress. Therefore, the position has remained vacant. The power that Goten just erupted is strong enough to completely crush all the gods of destruction. So it is indeed appropriate for him to inherit this position, the Grand Priest said thoughtfully. The other 12 gods of destruction were unprogressive. Especially after becoming gods of destruction, they hardly trained. Such a mentality and strength were not suitable for the grand god of destruction. On the other hand, Goten was a bit confused. He thought to himself, what are these two trying to sell? Are they asking me to be a god of destruction? However, he remembered hearing about the position of Grand God of Destruction from the previous Grand Priest in another timeline. When he fought against the Grand Priest, he heard this title mentioned and knew Zeno had intended to make him the Grand God of Destruction. But due to subsequent events, he lost interest. Now, unexpectedly, in this timeline, they had the same plans. So, Goten, are you interested in becoming the Grand God of Destruction? If you become the Grand God of Destruction, you will have very high authority, Zeno asked. The Grand Priest added, the Grand God of Destruction has the right to command all gods of destruction and angels. At the same time, after becoming the Grand God of Destruction, you will master a higher level of destruction law. For ordinary people, this kind of temptation was quite significant. Even all the gods of destruction coveted this position, but they were unqualified. The current Goten had the strength to be qualified. In this world, strength was always respected. A higher level of destruction laws? Goten asked, showing slight interest. If it was just a title, he had no interest. But if it could improve his mastery over the destruction laws, he could consider it. After all, the power of destruction was also a power of laws. If he could upgrade his power of destruction again, he might counter Zeno's power of laws. Although this idea was absurd, he could try it. However, he had a bigger concern. Then, who is the Supreme Kai who corresponds to the Grand God of Destruction? Goten asked. This was what he cared about most. Every god of destruction had a corresponding Supreme Kai, and their fates were linked. If one died, the other would disappear too. If he were bonded with another Supreme Kai, he would not accept the position. The temptation of higher destructive power was not that great. Corresponding Supreme Kai? Gods of destruction have corresponding Supreme Kais, but the Grand God of Destruction is not a god of destruction. It is an identity similar to mine, so there is no corresponding Supreme Kai, the Grand Priest explained with a smile after a moment of surprise.